Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Tuesday and welcome to my rant of the week. And it is all about patients' rights because the wrong people are making the decisions for everyone. And I, for one, do not think that this is a workable system. And over the past few years, I have gotten bored to death with discussions about health. I know more about some people's health than I do about my own. And honestly, it is the last thing I want to discuss or have on my mind. The reason why I'm bringing it up here is because in the last week or so, I've noticed a few little rumblings in the media from a couple of people here and there trying to resurrect the specter of COVID once again, just as the race for the congressional midterms is about to pick up steam. Funny that. I'm beginning to wonder if we can look forward to more pandemics or health scares every election cycle. But I digress. From the get-go, the wrong people have they've just had entirely too much power. And they have too much influence about who ought to be doing what information is permissible, what isn't, who's allowed to speak, who must be silenced at all costs, which studies count, which ones don't, why the people who are in charge, why their mistakes don't count, and why we should all keep believing everything they say, regardless of their track record or objective empirical evidence. Now, since when did anyone in the medical profession, the political sphere, or in the noise that composes the media own our bodies or had any right whatsoever to make our medical decisions? The last time I inquired, the issue of whether or not it was permissible to own people, which if you can control what medical decisions they make no mistake, you own the person at that point. But the last time that was really discussed, it was the 1860s, and we discussed it at musket point. And, ever since then, our society rejected the idea that you could own people and that you could just dispose of them as you saw fit and that they had no right to tell you yes or no, that it was just for them to hear and obey. We rejected that idea. But comes along an illness with a survival rate in excess of 99%, and suddenly people forgot all about bodily autonomy and medical consent, and who exactly was in charge around here. Therefore, the individual's will and consent in matters of health must be supreme in our culture, politics, and law. I completely reject any argument that states that someone else has the right to interfere in another person's medical choices. I don't care if it's the government, a company, the media, dictatorial medical doctors who think they know it all and have delusions of grandeur, or a meddlesome grandmother. No one has the right to force you to accept or reject a medical decision or a health practice. It is up to you. It is an individual's absolute right and responsibility to make their own choices and to ferociously oppose anyone who would seek to strip them of that right. If you are an adult and you are of sound mind, it isn't up to anybody else. Now, granted, before people get busy in the comments section, there are a couple of loopholes that I have foreseen that I would like to address straight away. The first, because why would we shy away from anything controversial, is abortion. The argument in favor of abortion has always been about bodily autonomy. Now, yes, it is true, a woman has the right to make choices for her own body, but she does not have the right to make choices about the body of a helpless human growing inside of her if it's her intent to destroy it. From conception on, the unborn child has its own unique DNA. It has its own physical form. The fact that it is helpless to survive without the mother is not an argument that permits the mother to destroy that life. Toddlers are helpless without adults to look after them. Those with severe and debilitating mental illness are helpless without caretakers. The elderly, sadly, are often helpless without someone to render them aid. We do not destroy those lives because their circumstances make them dependent, and therefore there is no logical consistency in saying that you have the right to destroy a life in the womb just because it's dependent. Secondly, in matters of birth control, If you are married or in a long-term relationship, getting a vasectomy or getting your tubes tied is a decision that is best when it is a joint decision. When people make a permanent union, they cede a measure of autonomy over themselves because they are working together as a team. They are the foundation of a family, whether they ultimately have children or not. They are their own unit. So issues surrounding birth control, especially if we're talking about permanent measures, that affects both parties equally. So there is a case to be made for such decisions to be made jointly. And third, mental illness that renders someone unable to make decisions is a tragedy, one that far too many families are familiar with, especially when it comes to elderly relatives who suffer a form of a cognitive decline. In that case, it is necessary for the family to make necessary medical decisions, and it's advisable for people to create legal documents that outlines their wishes in the event that they become incompetent, so the families can act in accordance with that guidance. So with those caveats out of the way, let's move on. Now, likely, I suspect most people who would be watching this video are probably on board with the idea, and they agree that neither the government, nor the media, nor any place of employment or business has any competency whatsoever in matters of health and medicine. But what about those people who may claim doctoral supremacy and say that it's called doctor's orders for a reason? Here's my case against that. Even doctor's orders is still just medical advice. Maybe it's good advice, maybe it's bad advice, maybe it's middle-of-the-road advice, but it is still advice. Whether or not a patient chooses to act on that advice is their decision. The role of a physician is to diagnose, present treatment options, and proceed in accordance with the will of the patient. Doctors have limitations. They are not all equal in knowledge, skill, or experience. There's a reason why it has been normal for many years to encourage people to get a second opinion, especially if it's a serious matter of health. Because even the most knowledgeable, the most experienced, the most skillful physician doesn't know it all. And neither are they immune to simple human error, even if they are acting with the best of intentions and are super focused on the patient's well-being. Mistakes happen. And sometimes the second opinion can reveal that mistake and gives the patient a better understanding of what's going on and how best to proceed. Now, here's the nasty bit. Scandals of recent years in which a number of doctors have been revealed as nothing more than salesmen for pharmaceutical companies, that is a sufficient reason in and of itself not to give doctors absolute trust or to allow them absolute power. Sadly, not every doctor cares about their patients. For some people, it really is all about the paycheck or perhaps a certain prestige because you're a doctor and, that gives people a certain status in our society. Okay. I wish it was different, but it doesn't make any sense to operate on the assumption that every doctor has good intentions and that every doctor is genuinely concerned with the well-being of their patients when we have so much evidence to the contrary. Now, here's where I might get in trouble. Consequences are necessary to punish people who have been usurping individual rights. What has taken place in recent years is a violation of basic human rights, rights that only a few years ago were considered beyond contestation. Allowing people who knowingly and blatantly violated people in this manner is encouraging the behavior to continue, with ever more dire consequences and with ever more loss of individual freedom. People's medical details and their choices have been bandied about over the past 2 years by third parties, which grossly violates HIPAA laws as well as a basic right to privacy. Now, individuals can decide to tell all and sundry about everything about themselves, including medical decisions and medical procedures that at the end of the day most of us don't really want to hear about, but they can do that. They can share that information if they choose to. But members of the medical profession, companies, and the government has no such right. People need to go to jail, and I encourage all efforts to drag them through the courts and make them legally pay. Send a clear signal that this will no longer be tolerated. Now, on the state level, I think movements that are fighting for medical freedom should start to combine forces and to get more active in recruiting support. Find out how you can help each other over your common interests. Make it clear to the governments that they are not going to remain in power if they do not enforce current laws on patient rights and if they do not enact measures to get third parties out of medical decisions. This means that no one should have the right to fire you over your medical choices, nor do they have the right to solicit information from you of that kind. No one should be allowed to deny you entry on the basis of your medical decisions. The purpose of a business is to sell a product or a service. Your medical history and your medical decisions is none of their business, and it is not a reasonable condition on that business relationship. Media must be held accountable for slandering and libeling the reputations of medical doctors and private individuals with whom they disagree, especially if it can be proven that this animosity has been political in nature. And last but not least, every effort must be made to create a separation between government and medicine. We've already seen how quickly the government can politicize medical issues and how far they are happy to go when it comes to imposing on the constitutional rights and the human rights of the citizenry. They must suffer legal consequences and experience legal punishments. It is absolutely necessary to deprive them of power in this area of life. Now, if you've been thinking on lines similar to mine, I would ask you to please share this on your social media, get people involved in a broader discussion, get more involved with any efforts that are trying to create some legal pushback on this unwarranted intrusion upon all of us. And let's just combine forces and try to make it be part of the effort to make it clear. You know, as individuals, it's limited what we're able to do, but you get a massive group coming together, and suddenly the government realizes that if they want to keep getting their state-funded paychecks, they better start doing what they're told. So please, by all means, if you agree, share, leave your ideas in the comments about what other measures we can take. And by all means, come see us at Blackbird's Brew on Discord. There's a link to join in the description box below. We have a specific channel on the server that is devoted to discussion about current events and politics. So you could absolutely unload and vent in that place. It's what it's for. And not only might that make you feel better, it might also help the brainstorming process with people of like mind. So you are very, very welcome. That's it for today. All the contact information on how you can get in touch with this contact and with me personally, it's all going to be in the description box below, so I hope to hear from you soon. And I guess that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.